Hello and welcome to The Final Bell, the official Geelong Cats podcast. It is great to have you with us. After a fantastic win, Gather Round is done and dusted and the Cats get the victory against the West Coast Eagles. We're going to talk all things Cats Eagles. We're going to talk all things Cats Swans next week. We'll talk VFL. We'll talk VFLW. We'll get to a few of your questions a little bit later on. But the most exciting part of this whole day is my co-host is back. Somehow. Got Meg back. Managed that, dragged you back from Ireland and London and wherever you ran away to. Meg, It's great to see you.
Thanks for that intro, and thank you for running the show while I was away. I know you're very adept at it, but I gave you 48 hours notice. Mind you, I didn't have much notice myself, but I did. I ran away and tried to join in on some recruiting. We had a successful trip, and then I indulged in a few extra days in London. So
if you're going to fly all that way,
that's right.
You need to have a little bit of fun.
Got to see some theatre,
that
nice.
Sort
of thing.
Go to the West End, is that where it is?
Yep, went to the West End.
Oh, beautiful.
I like my plays and musicals. So
very
anyway,
nice.
That's a side note.
I want to get to that recruiting in just a second. We did have a couple of capable fill-ins for you. We had
I know.
Joel Selwood and Renee Gehring. Thank you to both of those wonderful people for filling in.
I tried to do my catch-up listening, and if I was at all nervous in the first episode, to know that then I'd been replaced by the one and only Joel, I was like, oh, I'm not threatened at all. This is all good. No worries. No, he was fantastic. So I hope maybe, look.
Well, I think maybe you set the bar so high that we dumped him after only a couple of weeks because he wasn't up to your standard. Then we gave Renee an opportunity, who was brilliant. And there were a lot of discussions going on about whether or not we even invite Meg back after Renee's performance.
Yeah, that's fair. Look, I was saying you will not hear probably anyone in Geelong say a bad word about Renee, so I would happily step aside.
No, it is great to have you back. Let's get on to why you were away. You were on a recruiting mission, a successful one. Tell us about the new recruits.
Well, gosh, we met, so we went over, and I think because of the timing of the sign and trade period and the AFL giving us some dates on getting our list together ahead of season 8, it all sort of came to a head quite quickly, and it became apparent that if we were going to sign these two and that we'd been looking at, then we had to get over quick smart, because I think there are a couple of other teams in the mix, and I think we wanted to demonstrate, first and foremost our commitment to those players, and then a sort of second part of the trip was, Rachel, our existing Irish player, was back over there playing, so I got to meet her family as well and go up to Mayo and say hi there. But it was great. We had a series of meetings with each player, and then tried to wine and dine the parents a few times. I had an introduction into how football clubs function. It was fantastic. Watched a game of Gaelic, and we're absolutely over the moon to have Anna Rose Kennedy and Ashley Maloney sign on up and become Cats.
Wining and dining Irish style is dangerous, yes. Meg. I'm glad you came back.
I made it through. Look, I don't think I've ever had as many consecutive days of hot chips in a row. I managed 1 pint of Guinness and moved on. But one of the girls' dads was concerned that I wasn't. He goes, I'm having my first Guinness with him. And he goes, I can finish that if you want. Like, it's not. Are you okay? I said, well, they only gave it to me 3 minutes ago. So, no, I haven't finished it yet. No, it was a great experience, and now that they're on board, I'm looking forward to visiting. I've hopefully got a few places to stay.
Yeah, perfect. Quick update on, and I'm sensing a level of frustration, and quite rightly so. We still don't have dates yet, do we? For
we
the
don't
AFLW?
have dates. I think we're all operating on a sort of no later than end of May start time for pre-season, and around about early August. I think the players are still hoping on a couple of more games, but we've got to have a sort of CBA agreement go through about the season. So, part of I became quite anxious to get back and get stuck into it, particularly when you're spending a week or two speaking about how exciting it is to be part of the team and how well we're going. I found myself going, yeah, and I want to get home and get stuck back in. So I think everyone's really accelerating their preparation on the knowledge that we'll be starting pre-season in a month to two. Yeah.
Okay, great. You might need to get rolling with that pre-season, given you went for a run yesterday and you're cramping.
I was cramping. I was running overseas okay, and then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to get straight back in. I got back late Sunday night, Monday night running session. Here we go.
Blame jet lag. That's the reason for the cramp.
I did. It was only 5 efforts too. I was like, this is not good.
You're sounding like me now, Meg. I'll tell you all about my horrendous injury that I had while you were away. Flying along the ground, like running as fast as you've ever seen. And I rolled my ankle just running on a path and snapped all the ligaments in ankle. Yeah. At walking speed, mind you. But anyway, no one wants to hear about that.
I was showing some of the staff what my ankles looked like after the return flight. It was probably similar.
Yes.
Quite swollen.
Yeah. It's a nice feeling, isn't it? No. Let's get to the game on the weekend. Gather Round was a huge success from the AFL's perspective. Kicked off Thursday night. The Adelaide Crows had a big win. They were magnificent against Carlton. Went right through the weekend. Went to Mount Barker. Games at Norwood Oval and obviously a couple of double headers at the Adelaide Oval. But the one we want to lock in on, Sunday afternoon, Geelong versus West Coast. A couple of little nervous moments in the first quarter again. And then a second quarter where Geelong said, okay, enough's enough. Let's just end this game. I wouldn't say they played out the game on firing on all cylinders, but a superb performance during that second term to just put the game away.
Amazing performance. Much like the week before that sort of 65-point term, I actually got to Perth Airport on my return journey and was able to fit the first half in there on the layover. When I switched it on, we were 2 goals down in the first. I was like, oh, boys, come on.
Yeah, come on.
By the time I got on the plane, I thought we were headed for a 150-point win, and I got back to 47 points. Was it in the end?
It was 47 points, yes.
But it's good to see that, as they were saying throughout the first 3 rounds, our ability and our potential is still there. It's just about being able to execute. So perhaps we're not doing it for 4 quarters yet, but our best is pretty good.
No, someone gave me they were happy. They were excited about the fact that the Cats had won and were back on track with 2 wins. But then they asked the question, but is it a concern that we didn't finish that game off and go on and win by 120 points? For me, if you are a team that has perhaps got close to a premiership in the last couple of years or is on your initial surge up the ladder, I want to see that element of finishing games off and destroying opposition, winning by 100 points. But if you've already won a premiership and it's at round 5, I have a little bit more wiggle room in a forgiveness of, okay, this team, they've played really good football. They know the game is won at half time. They're not idiots. They're playing a team that they're better than and they're a mile ahead in the scoreboard. I'm going to cut them a bit of slack and forgive them for not going on with this one this early on in the season. Are you a bit like that as well? A champion team doesn't have to be absolute flat out for 27 weeks of the season.
Totally. I think, I've got 2 thoughts on the matter. I think a huge learning from last year that everyone's speaking about is knowing when to put the foot on the accelerator and when you need to peak, and that's certainly not in the second half of a round 5 match that you've already got in the bag. So I think you can take that as an indication of all the learnings and as you say, trust in the experience of an incredibly successful team. And also I think it's indicative of the fact that, the best in any sport, I think that the final layer that you add to your performance is having gears to go to. And whether that's, having 5th, 6th gear where you can turn it on and pile on goals, and then at different stages of the match knowing what's required and pulling it back a little bit. So, I think the last 2 weeks has been an indication of the team's professionalism, even though it can look to outsiders like, the number one indicator of professionalism is a 4-quarter performance. I think if you look from that slightly different perspective, you'll be pretty assured that we're on the right track.
Some players got back to their very best form. I wouldn't say very best form yet. I think they're still building because, as you said, 4 quarters plus the opposition, higher intensity games brings out even better performances. But reward perhaps for some of their hard work. We saw it against Hawthorn the week before, that start rolling, and that was really exciting. Tommy Hawkins now kicks 4 goals and gets a little bit of reward for some of the work that he's been doing. Brad Close kicks 4 goals. Jeremy Cameron just decided to do it all in 1 quarter. Put on a nice little show. Tyson Stengel was getting some of that reward as well, and unfortunately the injury then stopped him. But Paddy Dangerfield, I think you saw him just open the motor up a little bit. He's out on the freeway and he's just decided to tap on the accelerator a little bit harder. bursting out of the middle of the ground a couple of times.
Back at Adelaide Oval, it could have been 2015.
Oh, yeah. No, when did he come to Geelong? Gee, my memory's disappeared.
Mid-teens, he's peaked.
Yeah, mid-teens. There we go.
Not peaked. Sorry, not peaked, Paddy. No, imagine being able to power through a centre stoppage like that, and put it on. He put it on someone. It was a big Hawk's chest, I think, and
a couple of times.
But even the thing that's so awesome watching Danger is the clearances are spectacular. But there was one instance where I think he tackled and he knocked the ball 20 metres in the Cats' direction just with the force of his attack on his opponent. So I think the team, Paddy said after the game that I think he thinks his form's a bit similar to the team. He's sort of getting into a good groove now and hitting his stride, which is exciting for everyone.
I think too, if I look at a couple of real positives from the non-obvious players. Asava Radaglia, his performance again, that's another game under his belt, playing in defence. He started reading it, took all those intercept marks early. The marks weren't quite coming again later on in the game, but he was still in the right position, and he was learning the defensive craft to his game. So a huge tick, and again that extra step of Max Holmes.
Oh my gosh. There were a couple of passages in a row where he's taking bounces down the wing and I think, again, delivering it into Hawk. So I know he's one of your favourites. Are you thinking he's on the right track?
Yeah. What I noticed with him, Meg, when we were watching the early games was I thought he was solid. He was doing quite well, but in a midfield that was getting badly beaten.
Yes.
Really off their best. And so he was getting, I don't know, call it 18 touches and a goal from and the occasional little burst, which would be really good performances if it was in a good balanced midfield that was winning games of football, and we'd all be going, oh yeah, Max is growing, and you can see him taking that step. But because the midfield was getting badly beaten, we're probably down on everyone in the midfield. But I thought he was still okay. And then the last 2 weeks we've just seen jump from Max. And he feels like now as part of a really good midfield that he's growing in the confidence. You're right. The couple of occasions that you referenced, I reckon he looked and realised, I've got a metre and I've got that guy covered.
Yeah, there was one where he kicked it off the deck and then he gathered himself. And, I think it really speaks to that ability. If you're going to be an A-grader, to have a weapon of your own, and his speed is that for him. I mean, he's an absolute machine on the outside. And to think that he ultimately might become an inside player is so exciting.
I would have loved to have had that. Just where you could just turn and go,
he's not cramping after a 6-minute session.
I would like to run away from one person once. I can't even run away from my kids anymore. It was just a couple little highlights here.
Love it.
Tommy Hawkins moved past Sticks Kernahan, the great Sticks Kernahan, one of the greatest of all time, with his 738th goal. Of course, he ended up on 741. So he's climbing that ladder of greatest goal kickers ever.
And it got me thinking, I mean, how many has he given away?
Yes,
and then so we were looking at it and thinking, do you know all time?
No.
I've got it here for you.
Oh, see, it's so good to have you back.
He's 332 goal assists in his time, which puts him second since they've started recording the stat, which is how long, I don't know.
I just need to
20
know
years?
Who's number one.
Well, have a guess. We got time for you to guess? I'm not sure.
Give me the team.
That's two. There are two teams. He played for two teams.
Oh,
he's not a key position forward.
Did he play here?
He did not play here.
Oh, okay, I was going to go junior then. I don't know.
He featured quite heavily in the commentary over the weekend, in the commentary teams, because he kicked a lot of goals at Adelaide Oval.
Eddie, of course. Why didn't I think of Eddie?
Yeah.
Okay, so Eddie
350.
Eddie Betts number one, Tom Hawkins number two.
Number two. What could get him this year? And one more thing for Cats fans. I was looking at it and we have 5 Cats players in the top 15 goal assists ever. So maybe there's something in that.
Yeah, something to do with selflessness and team play.
Were you one of the 5, would you say?
No, I definitely wasn't. No. I was doing all the work down the rest of the ground so that those people could shine.
That's the stuff. Same, mate, same.
At least that's what I'm going to tell myself and tell my kids regularly. Couple of down points of that game on the weekend, unfortunately. X-rays have shown Tyson Stengel has suffered a fracture of the radius bone in his left arm, which went under that crunching tackle. Just got in that awkward position, felt for him straight away. So he's going to have surgery in Melbourne in the coming days. And the club is saying he'll be sidelined for the medium term. So not putting an exact
No, we're getting more familiar with that phrasing, aren't we? The medium term.
So for me, that's 5 to 8 type thing.
Yeah.
Is that type of
They also
period?
said that about Tom Stewart, and then he was back a bit sooner, but I don't know that he didn't have a broken bone.
No. And the other one, unfortunately, Reece Stanley has undergone a CT scan, which revealed a fracture of the right eye socket. Reece is going to have surgery in Adelaide on Monday, so he will have already had that. And he's sidelined for the medium term as well with that eye socket injury, and playing some really good football. So now that throws a challenge. Perhaps Johnny Segler, you'd imagine, will come in, and exactly why he was brought to the club to be that player who can come in, really compete and be strong, coming up against a team that's obviously got a really good midfield, and it's an important role for Johnny Segler to play.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously Blitz has been taking a bit of the load in there as well. So it's exciting to have depth in that area of the ground and sort of be dynamic with different types of ruckman as we build the team each week. But I just think that would have been quite a painful thing to go through. So I hope he's okay, and I hope he comes back with the look?
NBA style goggle thing. I've still got plates and screws in my face from an eye socket cheekbone fracture. It's not a pleasant injury. There's nothing good about it, because even when you eat, you just chew and
imagine even blinking wouldn't be very fun.
Yeah, you don't. And of course, every now and then when you're sleeping, you accidentally roll onto that side and you quickly go back. Mine was courtesy of an elbow from Dean Solomon here at GMHBA Stadium, 2008. One of the most beautiful things I found, sorry to just self-indulge you for a second, is the Geelong community that we're a part of here, and why I cherish having grown up here and played at this club is it was a horrific incident. It was a clear elbow. Dean got 8 weeks suspension for it. It was depressed fracture, so my whole half my face was caved in. In the rooms, I had both the radiologist who owned a clinic here and the surgeon who was to operate on me come into the rooms.
Oh my goodness!
And do a consult. This is on a Sunday afternoon at the game.
At the game. The
radiologist then left the game and drove to his clinic to open it up for us so that we could do the scans necessary that night. Yeah. And I was booked in the next morning with the surgeon who was in the rooms. All just went out of their way, took themselves out of probably their family and that to at the game.
They were in the crowd?
They were in the crowd.
That's amazing.
And I just thought, what other club could you have just such beautiful people and highly skilled, incredible, qualified people just go, yep, someone needs my help, I'm going to jump in there and do it. And I had, as I said, surgery the next morning, which got my recovery kick-started earlier. And I ran into Morris, who was the radiologist just the other day, and I still say to him, I'm so thankful. My parents are still so thankful that he put up his hand to do that. So that is the beautiful community we live in. I
reckon I know Morris.
From GMI?
Yeah.
Yep, great man.
Put a needle in my hip recently.
I hope you're okay. I missed the 2 games with that one, which
just the 2.
Yeah, I was a bit silly. We weren't quite as smart back then with the way we protect things a little bit more. But I was keen. It was getting towards later in the season. I missed Bulldogs and Hawthorn, who were the 2 leading contenders in 08 to us, and I was shattered about that. So I just had enough of sitting by. I just wanted to get back in and play. It was round 17 and 18. So
a shorter medium term.
Yes, slightly on the shorter side of things. Let's look ahead really quickly. I'll get to the VFL, VFLW just a second, and then we got your questions coming up in segment 2. The game Saturday night here, there's going to be a lot happening. Obviously, it's the grand final rematch against the Swans who have played some good footy throughout this year and have also had a couple of disappointing losses on their behalf. A Saturday night game. There's going to be a lot happening around this game. The flag is getting unfurled, which is the most exciting thing. It's Anzac round. There's a heap happening around this weekend.
I mean, it's so exciting to be back home in Geelong and play at GMHBA. I think no doubt there'll be a full house. And just the buzz around town with footy back in here. We've just had an open training session. Your kids were there. They were loving it.
My kids are currently right now, they're sitting just outside where we're recording this. Please forgive me if they come in here making a whole heap of noise. They're pumped because they got autographs, they've eaten hot dogs and jam donuts, and they high-fived the players. So the opening session's been brilliant.
Yeah, great. And the best thing about it is it's bound to be an excellent game. I think Sydney have started well, as you do when you're, been defeated in a grand final, and we're getting our game back. I think it'll be interesting because we smashed them in contested possessions in that grand final, right? Yep. And that's probably the knock on our performance early days, but we're it's also been the reason for our exceptional passages of playing the most through recent weeks. So keen to see how the mids go against theirs.
And we can say all we like, it's just another game, we'll focus on the game, improving everything like that. For them, I've been in this situation, lost a grand final. It's not just another game.
Well,
this is not just another team.
Somewhat of my, I don't know if we're going to do a question without notice, but it was going to be along these lines. The rematch, how much stock do you put in it? Because I feel like, yes, you gear yourself up for it, but at the same time, nothing will ever...
No, Meg, you are spot on there. Nothing will ever replace that. Yeah. I've been retired 12 years now. The grand final I think about most is the one I lost.
Yeah.
Stupidly, I should be more positive and happy with everything, except I go back there every now and then, and it just grinds at me. So you'll never, ever get that back. However, you can say everything you like to the media, and you do. It's just another game. We'll be focusing on what we're doing. We're going to concentrate on our strengths. That game was last year. It burns away at you. And Mark Thompson, our great coach, said after we lost in 2008, he said that should hurt forever. It should hurt so much that you never, ever want to get beaten by this team again. No matter what, this should stick with you and should drive you to never, ever want to lose to this team again. So
you
it is
for a long time.
No, well, unfortunately, I never did, which was cool. But I still don't get the grand final back. Yes. So it's that thing where, yes, it will drive the Sydney Swans. It will burn, and they will come out breathing fire. We can say everything we like. They will be absolutely breathing fire. But it never replaces it. Yeah. But you can certainly just chip away at wanting to get a shot back at that team that beats you. So it'll be a huge game Saturday night.
What about for Geelong? Geelong's perspective on, the mentality going into playing a contender again? Yeah,
that's a funny one, isn't it? I was always of the theory, well, once you had them, because you've beaten them in a grand final, and for us, the closest, I suppose, example I can give is the Port Adelaide grand final we won by a lot, was that you knew you had something over them. So make sure you keep that thing over them.
Yes.
You never, every chance you get to crush them again, destroy their soul. Do it, because it never lets them back into taking the field thinking they're on an even footing with you. They're always going to want a shot back at you, but if you can continue to just absolutely destroy them in whatever way you can, do it. Find a way to do it. So that's the challenge, or that's the mindset we always had. Geelong, I think we've seen so far, aren't playing their best footy yet, but we're seeing the signs over the last 2 weeks where they're getting back towards it, which is the cool thing for this week.
Yeah, and certainly I think, that recent history, the couple of teams that we've played that will undoubtedly be there at the end and among finals, we haven't quite managed to execute against. So I think we've had a couple of good weeks against middling teams, perhaps, and this will be... I think we're primed for a challenge of a team that's in the window as well. Yeah,
huge test. Can't wait for that one. Looking to the VFL and who may or may not replace Tyson Stengel. Reece Stanley, we think, will be replaced by Johnny Segler. We'll have to wait and see for selection there. But the VFL did have a win against Werribee, a 13-point victory there, which was good to see. Some of the goals, just looking across the names there, Ollie Dempsey found one, Mitch Nevitt found one, but a lot of the Oscar Riccardi found a goal as well. But a lot of the guys who are on the VFL list as well involved. So good that the VFL team could get that win, and a couple of potential players
Mitch
to step up.
Mitch and Ollie have been hitting the scoreboard, haven't they? And combining for a few, I think. So possibly they get the opportunity, but at the same time, I think Gary Rowan's back available. Yes. So
that seems the obvious one, doesn't it? And it's not like for like because Tyson does other things, but that speed and pressure that Gary Rowan can put on that Tyson does as well, it seems like it fits pretty well.
Absolutely.
Well, we'll wait and see with selection. VFLW, the Geelong team, had another good win after last week's win, 10-point victory over the Southern Saints. Just out of this question without notice, do you play any VFLW? What's your take on it? Renee's mentioned that she is and wants to.
She's mentioned along here in the best.
Yes.
I think she came fresh off the podcast into 18 tackles.
18?
Oh, she's
Well
a
done,
machine.
star.
She's an absolute star.
Are you going to play any?
I don't think I will.
Yep.
I am ashamed to admit I have never played VFL for the Cats through injury and
Don't
rest
be ashamed
and
to admit that.
COVID. Okay. I've spoken to Flinny, our backline coach, our AFLW backline coach is the head coach of our VFLW team, and we sort of flirt with the idea occasionally. But no, I don't think I'll be playing. I think at the moment the VFLW is quite a development space for a lot of players, and those AFLW listed players that are playing are ones that are in their sort of initial stages of their career and looking to take the next step, or making extraordinary returns from having a baby like Renee and getting the ball back in their hands. So I say that, and here is Chloe. She listed among the best. Chloe just can't help herself and wants to play. I do think...
But trying different positions as well.
She's trying to get into the midfield, exactly right. And but, as we continue to return to training, I think the appetite to play footy is really strong. So I think a few more AFLW girls have put their hand up to try and have a little run around across the next month or so.
Excellent, fantastic. Hopefully they can continue on their winning ways. Let's take a break because we've got a heap of listener questions. We always appreciate everyone sending their questions in. Please keep them coming right throughout this season. As I say every week, we will get to as many as we possibly can. We'll be back in just a moment with your questions. Welcome back. It is great to have you with us on to the final bell. I'm with Meg Mac, which is exciting because Meg's back from overseas. I love calling you Meg Mac, by the way. While you're away the whole time, I was like, yeah, Meg Mac.
Were you? Yeah. I did listen. I didn't take note of that. It was my first ever footy.
Off air. I just
off
air.
My first ever footy training. I went down and you're into nicknames. And Meg Mac, the singer, had just hit the scene. Do you know Meg Mac, the singer? You don't?
Of course I do, Meg. Yeah, sure.
Oh, no. All right, I'll send you some Meg Mac.
Okay.
Because I was playing with Elisa Day, who's recently retired at the time, and she was like, "G'day, welcome to the Falcons. How you going? Your name's Meg. Have you heard of Meg Mac?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, my surname's actually McDonald, so I relate." And it was on.
Meg
anyway,
Mac.
that holds much more significance if you're familiar with the exquisite voice of one of Australia's greatest singers.
Wow, okay. Can you please send me some Meg
I
Mac?
said, can you please... I won't be giving you a rendition. So
no. You're welcome to do that.
Absolutely not.
No. Okay. All right, let's get to your questions. We love our listeners sending in questions. We'll try and answer as many as we possibly can for this week ahead of the huge clash Saturday night, the Cats and the Swans at GMHBA Stadium. This one's a good one, Meg, because I'm
excited.
I won't say I'm not a pessimist, but it's like a little bit more of a realist, like, it's just never going to happen again. But even I'm getting a little carried away with it. Can Jeremy Cameron get 100 goals this season? That one's from JPB489. Thank you, JPB. Can he, or are we just getting way too excited?
Of course he can. I don't know. One person's done it in the past, how long?
Buddy, 2008 was the last time.
Yeah, that's an extraordinarily long time. But his ability to score quickly is just like he kicked 4 1/4. Yeah. We've got an extra round. He's on 20 already? 22. He's on 22 already. Look, I think if he's on north of 80 with a game to go, he's fine. He's fine.
I love your positivity. Do you know what we need? We need, and this is not to say that they should have done it on the weekend.
We need to feed him.
Well, once they've got a hold of a team, in at least 1 week, Jez needs to turn it into I'd love a double figures again, a 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Just to take a bit of the pressure off other games where it might be a low scoring, wet day, whatever it might be. Or well held, and he only finds 2. Yeah. If he could kick a 10, that's too much to ask, is it? Nah.
Not at all. And he can go and get it wherever he wants. They're saying he
that's
had a
the
quiet,
magnificent thing.
they're saying he had a quiet game in the commentary, and it seems like that. He kicked 4 in a quiet game, but he was also the second leading disposal getter. If he kicks 100, is he also winning the Brownlow?
Oh, yeah. Well, for me, he has to.
Yeah.
I know the answer is probably not because the way the votes go. But
he'd have a few votes at the moment.
He'd have to. He is in such a hard competition to kick goals now, and we go crazy about a player who kicks 4 goals in a game. It's like, oh, he had a fantastic day, he kicked 4 goals. Yeah. If you can kick 100 in a season, you have influenced so many games of footy. And as you said so well, he isn't just getting 4 or 5 goals from 8 touches. Mm-hmm. He's getting 22, 23, 25 touches a game, taking 8, 9, 10 marks and influencing it with his...
And he can kick them from anywhere.
Yeah. All right. We're getting very, very excited, and I like that, Meg. Come on, Jez. Keep going.
Go, Jez. I actually did think of, when I was trying to watch the games from overseas, I thought of our discussion the first week where I said, who's the most irreplaceable player? And then it became quite evident that you were right in saying it's Jeremy Cameron.
It's rare that I'm right too, Meg, so I'm happy with that. And he is playing alongside, and there's something else you touched on earlier, he is playing alongside one of the most selfless key forwards to ever play the game. The mindset of a key forward, I'm not generalising here, I am just going straight up. They are all pretty selfish. And they are the big alpha male, just kick the ball to me and I'll kick the goals. Tom Hawkins is not that. He is just an incredibly selfless teammate. Yeah. He would be the sort of person who goes, if Jez gets at all close or at all a chance, just get him the footy. Yeah. Ignore me for a bit.
I know, and we actually failed to mention that Brian Myers, I think, is leading the league in goal assists as well. So he's got plenty of people that can get it in his hands if he doesn't, roam up to the midfield.
We'll get him deeper when he needs to kick the big ones. All right, this one ahead of Anzac weekend this weekend, and well, I mean, huge weekend of football coming up right across the competition. The Anzac Day clash between Essendon and Collingwood is as big a one as I can remember when both teams are actually going really well. So that'll be a fantastic day. But this question's from Brett, Meg. What is the significance of playing on Anzac Day? How much of a privilege is it for the players?
Well, I'm not sure that I can answer from experience. I don't know that I've ever played a game of footy on Anzac Day, but I imagine it's an incredible privilege. I know
You've been around the club as a build-up to an Anzac round. The players sense the importance of it, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone does. Players support everyone in the footy community who turns up on that weekend to pay their respects. I think a lot of the time there are parallels drawn, and some of the language around football is likens it to battle, which doesn't always sit comfortably, because how can it possibly equate? But at the same time, I think sport and playing football, and this is what I've found playing it later in a standard career life, is that it gives you an opportunity that is rare in general society to play in a team and to give your all for other people and to put your body on the line and risk injury and physically stand in front of things for your teammates. So if you look at it from that perspective, I think then you do understand why some of the language is used, because it taps into that, to the mateship. Having said that, as we said, it can't possibly equate, but it's a fantastic setting to pay as many respects as we can, and it's great to see that it's become around, not just a day.
Yeah, and I love it now being a father, because it can start a conversation around, well, what's this Anzac thing from my kids? What does Anzac mean? Who are the Anzacs? What are they referring to? Why do they wear those special jumpers? Just the simple, innocent questions that kids ask. You can start talking about that history and the important, and as you said, that camaraderie, that support, that care, the horror and the atrocities and the horrible things these people had to go through. But why they did it and everything like. So I love the conversation starter, which and you're spot on. I mean, football can never compare to anything like that. But it is a day to honour it, but also to get the next generation being inquisitive about what this was and who these wonderful people were.
Did you ever play on the day itself?
Yeah, I did. One definitely in Perth. They against Fremantle. I know we did that where it was actually on the day. It wasn't so much Anzac round. Like it is now. So if you didn't play on Anzac Day, it wasn't there weren't the ceremony or anything like that before the game. But I did play on that day in Perth when they were trying it, not just being in Melbourne, which was really special to be a part of. I know as a group, a few of us, especially those who lived down the coast when I was living down Torquay while I was playing, would go along to the Point Danger, dawn service, and that was always an important thing. And then the new draftees or the academy group and the young players, they started regularly going down for that as well so that they could learn a little bit about it. So we did things around Anzac Day, but it wasn't Anzac round, so you weren't always a part of it. But I'm glad they, as you said, they do it now. Thank you for that question, Brett. A really important one there. Sean, who is the best matchup for Blitzarves against Sydney? Mark Blitzarves is just so important for the Cats. The best player through the middle of the ground for the Sydney Swans at the moment feels like Chad Warner. And what he does and he runs. Not necessarily the most perfect matchup for Blitz. Mind you, Blitz can play on anyone. That's the ridiculous thing about him. Isaac Heaney got back to his best form on the weekend.
Yeah, he did. 2
goals, 20 touches, but is predominantly forward half rather than midfield. Have you got a sense? Or is this the sort of game where Blitz will just play that genuine utility role?
I assume the latter. I assume it's one of those games. I haven't watched as much as Sydney as I'd have liked being away, but I do love them. I love watching them. I love Goulden. I can't wait to see him live and his exquisite skills. So I don't think there's any one that he goes to, but they were saying again on the weekend what a weapon it is to have someone like that in your team. And
incredible. His importance in the grand final against Sydney was enormous.
Yes.
Clearances, strength, just around the ball. He just got things rolling for us. I think more the nightmare for someone, the sleepless nights, is going to be who's got Tommy Papley.
I was going to say perhaps because I think Jeb Hughes did well on him in the grand final. I think he might still be out with protocols, with concussion protocol.
He would clear the days. It's just whether or not he would clear the actual testing that then, because it's not just, as you know, Meg, just for our listeners out there, it's the 12 days mandatory. But even if it's post 12 days, they still have protocols, as you alluded to, that Jed will need to clear.
Yeah, all right, we'll see. I might have got my wires crossed on that one.
Oh no, but now I'm nervous though, because if you know
Easter Monday.
Oh, good point. I should run everything past you, Meg, before.
That might not be true either. I don't know. Right, we hope he's okay.
Quickly do our maths. This one's from Claire Boyd. I have no idea what the answer to this one is, Claire. Hopefully Meg does. Why does Isaac Smith keep his warm-up pants on until the last second before the game? Just must be something he loves. It just makes me
hear the expression, which is, I don't know if it's okay to say, meat on your bones. I don't know that I don't know that he has too many. He's getting cold. I'm assuming he's getting cold. Yeah. Because, and I think it's much like your hands. If they ever get cold before a game, there's no coming back. Like, they are just staying cold. So I think it's a priority. I mean, his legs they're the money makers, aren't they? He's still flying across the ground. He is flying. Maybe it's so he gets talked about on segments such as this. I don't know.
Oh, there you go, Claire. We have no idea, but I think Meg might be onto something. He just likes feeling warm and ready to run, and he's running very well at the moment. Meg Brazil asks, what are your tips on kicking the ball further?
Over to you.
Okay. I'll try my best. Don't do it now when you're my age and tear hammies off the bone. No, I've always, number one, if we're talking about set shot goal kicking and trying to get that extra range for kicking goals, straight lines are so important to me. I get the late run around for some who love to hook it to try and get that extra bit of distance. I never liked it. I preferred to keep everything as in straight a line as possible. With my run up straight, my follow through straight, my drop is pretty straight, and my follow through of the leg is straight, and momentum going through the ball, I reckon your room for error is decreased considerably. For kicking further, though, it's train it. Train it. Train that same technique that you're doing, but worry less about the result for a little while.
Yeah.
So actually really try and launch through the ball. Really try and get up through your plant foot, up on the toe and up. And
the current RFI for me. Continue.
and really get that momentum through the ball with your follow through of your kicking leg being really high, straight, and plenty of momentum at the target. But while you're practicing the distance part of it, don't stress too much about the accuracy. If you're purely trying to build that distance, get through it, and train it. And then give yourself some shots a little bit closer where you're not going for the distance, just to finish off, okay, for now, as I am kicking in a game, I understand my range, go back to this technique, this particular follow through, and this one, and I'm back to the accuracy part. But trying to kick the hell out of it for a little bit within still your technique, but just almost blasting through your technique, your hips, your plant foot, everything for a little bit over time. And I think some people might only get an extra metre on their kick. I don't think you're necessarily going to get 10 or 15 metres more, unless you're a younger junior. And then strength comes with it and power, obviously.
I think I can that's great. I think sometimes I can get into trouble trying to smack it. You're trying to kick it as hard and as far as you can. But as you say, you've got to learn what that feels like and then pull it back into something that you can control eventually.
Yeah, and then you find a rhythm where timing becomes more, but you know that you can actually extend through your kicking action a little bit more. Hopefully that makes a sense.
Yeah, that was thorough. I'm gonna kick at 4:30 tonight. So.
Ask this question, Meg. You're not allowed to say Gary Rowan here because it's the more obvious answer, which is probably the correct answer, by the way. But Sean wants to know, what is your left field option to cover Tyson Stengel's absence?
Okay. I think I'm going to play. It's going to be his debut in this spot. Maybe the only one he hasn't played. Mark Blicavs, small forward.
That's definitely left field. Yeah.
Well,
just figure because he can do everything else.
So he can do everything else. He can kick. Didn't he start the left foot snap?
He kicked a couple on the weekend, didn't he? He
ended up with 2. He did.
So he's maybe putting his hand up. Zach Tui also put his hand up with potential goal of the year.
He's kicked some great goals this season. I honestly, I don't know.
Okay, full points for creativity.
Yeah,
Meg.
that's what I've gone with.
Blitz.
Okay. And then, of course, we've got the boys. We've discussed it.
The younger guys, Ollie Dempsey, Mitch Nevitt. Yeah, okay.
What are you thinking?
I can't go as left field as that. Now you're putting me under pressure to actually think of a really creative, super left field one.
Play with one less player.
What
goals.
About this? Huh? Brandon Parfitt, purely as a small forward.
Love that from you.
High pressure, massive tackle, get him that work rate. Instead of thinking, okay, you've got to go and get it 25 times in the midfield to be a midfielder, we don't care if you get it 12 times, but if it's deep inside 450, those 12 times are incredibly
I'll tell you what, I'm sure
crucial.
He's up for it. He'd be keen, right?
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Couple of ideas. We'll see what selection has in store.
Keyword being left field. So.
Yes. Yeah, no, fair enough, Meg. I like it. It. Why not, Blitz? You've done everything else. Meg's got a challenge for you. Play as a small forward and make sure you kick 3 or 4.
Yeah.
No pressure at all. That's us done. Please keep your questions coming in next week. We'd love to get to as many of those as we possibly can. Meg, it is great to have you back.
No, it's great to be back. Thank you for the coverage, and thank you to Sel and to Renee.
Yes, who did fill in. I had to do one solo. I think they quickly realised you don't need to listen to my voice
I listened
the whole
to
time.
it. I made sure I was on.
Did that put you to sleep on the plane? No. You slept the whole way to Ireland just by listening to me. As I said, huge game here Saturday night. Geelong taking on the Sydney Swans. GMHBA Stadium, Saturday night footy. The premiership flag is getting unfurled, so get in your seat nice and early. Get a great spot. Do we have timing yet or not quite? No, check the club website for that one. That's all good. Check the club website. I'm sure it'll be pretty close to the bounce of the ball. There'll be a heap of players from the past, I think, involved in it. Lots of fans, obviously, who absolutely will love seeing that premiership flag unfurled. Let's hope the Cats can square up the ledger and go 3-3 against the Sydney Swans on Saturday night. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will be back next week. You're not flying off anywhere?
No, I'm committed.
No trips to America? Or?
Oh, no.
Okay.
But who knows?
NBA playoffs?
Might be 2 days' notice again.
All right. Meg and I will both be back next week.